On the next Probably True Solar Stories, 4 thieves break into 3 solar projects and try to steal the solar panels, copper wire, and other equipment. But every time they try, a brown tabby cat stops them with deadly consequences. Welcome back to Season 3 of Probably True Solar Stories. Thank you for your patience waiting for this new episode, but I hope you enjoyed a few of the old ones that you might have missed. This week we're back to one of my favorite genres, solar noir. Dark, ironic stories that have something to do with solar energy. There are now 5 million solar installations in the US today, and those are true stories. But this is not one of them. But there is some true aspects. Kleptovoltaics is the act of stealing solar equipment, and that's the true part. There's a great financial cost to the project owner and to the environment. But as you'll see in this story, the environment fights back. I'll have some thoughts about that at the end, but as always, you'll find some true solar takeaways in the episode's show notes. This is a 2-parter, so be sure to tune in next week for the conclusion. Okay, here we go.
Boom, la 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 la, oh, oh, la 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 la.
A Murder of Solar Crows Part 1 is written and read by Tor Solarfred Valenza. This is Detective David Rogers, Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, Violent Crimes Investigation Unit. I'm conducting a suspect interview with Mark Oscar Jameson, a.k.a. Mr. Watt, from the so-called Kleptovoltaics gang. Mr. Jameson is voluntarily making a statement regarding the 3 murders and attempted grand larceny at 3 commercial solar projects in Sonoma County between January 24th and May 26th, 2024. The time is 2:13 on May 27th, 2024. Mark, can I call you Mark? Yeah. You've agreed to this recording? Yeah. And you've waived your right to a lawyer at this time? Yeah. And you've stated that you want to volunteer a confession. Is that correct? A partial confession. I admit breaking into the solar projects, and I admit attempting to steal equipment. But I didn't kill the others. We'll get to that. Regarding the attempted thefts, you're referring to the attempted grand larceny at 3 solar projects adjacent to vineyards. Specifically, you're referring to Donnelly Vineyards on January 1st, 2024, Pasquale Winery on February 28th, 2024, and Fat Farm Estates on May 26th, 2024. Yeah, these were 1 to 2 megawatt solar projects. They had minimal security. We wanted to sell the copper wires, use panels, inverters, and transformers to overseas markets. But like I said, I did not kill Mr. Photon, Mr. Kilowatt, or Mr. Electron. I'll take a polygraph to that. Can you state their real names for the record? I don't know their real names. That's how we protected each other. We didn't even like each other, tell you the truth, but I didn't kill them. Step by step, Mark. We'll get to that. So the papers called you the Kleptovoltaics gang, as in klepto, theft, and voltaics, as in photovoltaics, right? Right. That's what we did. We stole solar panels. But it was more than just solar panels. The copper inside the cables, that was also valuable. How valuable? How much are we talking about? I don't know. Mr. Electron, he said there was about 4,000 pounds of copper wiring in your average 1 megawatt solar project. That's typically built next to a vineyard. So if we clipped and rolled all 4,000 pounds at $4.75 a pound, that's worth like 19 grand. If we had time, we could pull and sell the panels, inverters, and transformers on secondary market for $20,000 more if we were fast enough. So $40,000 divided by 4, $10,000 wouldn't be a bad haul. But $10,000 wasn't enough, was it, Mark? You decided to literally cut your partners out and slaughter them last night, didn't you? I didn't slaughter anyone. That was them, I swear. You keep saying them, but you don't give me names or descriptions. There's no Bible here, Mark. This isn't a court of law. We caught you inside Fat Farm Estates with blood all over you and what's left of your gang. Unless there's another part of the gang that got away, you murdered them. Detective, it's a waste of time trying to explain it to you. You get the coroner's report, he's going to back me up. I didn't murder anyone. They died from something else. Then why are you bloody? We found shotguns and we've already swiped you for gunpowder residue. So really, Mark, just save some time. You did it. Those aren't shotgun wounds, Detective. I told you, the coroner's gonna back me up. You wait for it. You keep saying that, but why don't you back up the coroner, Mark? Tell us what you know, and we'll see if the autopsy and your explanation match. You're not gonna believe me, Detective. I wouldn't believe me. I didn't do it. I swear on the Bible. I believe in evidence, Mr. Watt, not oaths from criminals. We caught you bloody and running through a solar farm with Mr. Photon, Mr. Kilowatt, and Mr. Electron hacked to bloody bits. Whatever weapon was used to kill your colleagues, the DA is going to say that you had motive to use that weapon for $40,000. It wasn't a weapon. It was the cat. The cat? Yeah. See, I told you you're not going to believe me. But fine, I'll tell you everything from the beginning. But I'm telling you, you're going to say I'm making it all up until the autopsy comes back. The more details you give me, Mark, the more I'll believe you're not making it up. So start from the beginning. How did you get involved with the kleptovoltaics gang? Mr. Electron, he came to me one day. I don't know how, but he knew I worked on solar projects before. He also knew I did time. But you didn't know Mr. Electron? No, maybe I worked with him on a past solar project. What about Mr. Photon and Mr. Kilowatt? No, but they knew their way around a solar project too. You have a record for carjacking, Mark, but you've been clean for 10 years. You told the parole board that you could change. What happened? Why do you think? I was broke. I needed the job. Solar has had a kind of boom and bust cycle. Now we're in a bust. Lots of people get laid off and don't turn to crime, Mark. You could flip hamburgers. Easier said than done when you've got a record, Detective. It's hard to find any work, let alone solar work. Anyway, I had unemployment and some savings, but I'd promised to buy my son a used car for his high school graduation. I thought one job, $10,000. I could get him some decent wheels and I'd fix whatever needed to be fixed. But you did 3 jobs, Mark. How do you explain that? Because the first 2 went sideways, Detective, and the last one went bloody sideways. Okay, good. Now let's get into it. Why did the first 2 go sideways? And this is the part where you're not going to believe me. This is the part where you're going to say I'm crazy. But turn on a polygraph right now and you'll see that I am not lying. Later, just tell it straight. You're going to tell me 10 times anyway. Let's see how consistent you are, Mark.
Boom, la 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 la. Boom, 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 boom. La 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 la. Boom, boom.
The first job was New Year's Eve, correct? At Donnelly Vineyards Solar Farm. Yeah, we always pick the holiday weekends. We figured we could work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights with little or no security. I knew how to take care of the security cameras because I'd installed them on my past solar jobs. Floodlights were also easy to turn off, and we did. You were working with electricity. Weren't you and the gang afraid of getting electrocuted? No, Detective. The sun doesn't shine at midnight, so there'd be very little electricity flowing through those panels from moonlight or starlight. Plus, we cut off the inverters and combiner boxes, so nothing was flowing in the lines. Okay, so you're cutting the copper cables, and then something interrupted you. Yeah, you could say that. What? A cat, Detective. Here we go with the cat again. Okay, describe this cat. Was it a mountain lion? It was a brown, striped alley cat. What do you call it? A tabby cat. I noticed it was standing on the combiner box. That's the box where you connect all the tracker strings. The box is the size of a refrigerator, so she and her whiskers are staring me in the face. I said to her, "Mind your own business, kitty cat. I'm not going to bother you." Well, she doesn't move. Instead, she hisses and arches her back. That didn't bother me. I stomped on my work boots, and then I tossed my glove at her, and she ran. So, a bad omen. Are you superstitious, Mark? This has nothing to do with superstition. Cat wasn't even black. I'm telling you about the cat for a reason. You want to hear what happened? Go ahead. Tabby runs away, and I get back to work. After we shut off the inverters, we focused on one tracker string at a time. There are usually 96 panels in the tracker string, and we figured we could pull copper and load 96 panels into our truck, one string at a time. I just clipped all the copper cables and was rolling them into piles, and that's when I heard the first flaps. The flaps? Bird flaps, as in wings. You ever heard of a murder of crows, Detective? Wait a minute. You're admitting you murdered crows? No, a murder of crows is an aviary expression. It's when crows line up one by one and perch on a tree limb or, in our case, a transmission wire. I heard that flapping sound, and I looked up from underneath my panel, and I saw a murder of crows on the transmission line connected to the project. They were everywhere. They were all over the rungs and the wires. It turned the tower and the lines to black. Then Miss Tabby comes back from behind the combiner box, and she's staring at me, like she's daring me or something. I stamp my feet again, but she doesn't move. I throw my glove at her again, and she ducks. And then she kind of licks her shoulder, like cats are always grooming. She licks her shoulder like 3 times, and then she looks over at the transmission tower. I see one crow take off from the line, and that whole row follows. Then another murder row comes off another line. 10, 15, maybe 20 lines of crows come together, like black dots forming together into a dark crowd. I turn back to Miss Tabby, but she's disappeared. But that black cloud of crows, they're heading towards me. Oh, Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds. That's your story. No, Detective. In this case, more like Mel Brooks. The crows, they started attacking us, but not with their beaks and claws. Instead, this was a bird shitstorm, like rain, maybe even a monsoon. That black bird cloud drifted over me and the other guys, and a storm of wet, warm crow shit came raining down on our jackets, our helmets, and faces. We ran, and they followed us and let loose wherever we went. Why didn't you just take cover under the solar panels? Because I'd already stolen them, Detective. They were in a pile next to the trackers. I figured we were doing something that was upsetting them. I thought maybe it was the yellow color of my helmet, and I took it off. Did that work? No. My hair just got a shampoo and condition at the crow shit salon. So I put my helmet back on and picked up one of my uninstalled solar panels as a shield. That helped. But we couldn't work like this. We'd already clipped and pulled the copper cable from most of the strings. I thought that at $4.75 a pound, that copper would be a decent chunk of change to get us started. So I called over to the others. Mr. Electron, I said, I can't take this anymore. Let's go. Mr. Kilowatt and Mr. Photon agreed. Load the copper, Mr. Electron said. So, still carrying a solar panel above my head, I went over to the copper piles, and that's when we saw Miss Tabby Cat again. She was haunched like a loaf of bread on one of the piles. As I got closer, she hissed and arched her back again. Okay, I said. So I backed off, but then Mr. Photon comes over. He was no animal lover, especially after the crows. Seeing the tabby, he made himself big and flapped his bird shit-stained coat. By this time, the crow crap storm had stopped. They must have run out of juice or whatever. But the tabby stood her ground. She did a little walk over the coil piles back and forth and sat, like she was saying, "These are mine. Don't." And Mr. Photon sees this, and he goes, "Oh, yeah?" He looks around, and he picks up one of our 3-foot-long cable cutters and swung it like a baseball bat at Miss Tabby. Miss Tabby ducks. Swing and a miss. Strike 1. Photon batters up again, but as he pulls back, Miss Tabby jumps on Mr. Photon's arm and started digging her claws and teeth, going right into his sleeve. Now I know this hurts because Mr. Photon is screaming in pain. Mr. Kilowatt comes over, and he sees what's happening. We all had squeezed plastic water bottles, and he takes his off his belt. He opens the tab, and he squeezes the sides of the bottle. It's like a squirt gun, and the water sprays into Miss Tabby, clawing into Mr. Photon's arm. Finally, Miss Tabby lets go, but now she's on the ground. Mr. Electron squirts again, but there's only so much water in this water bottle, and Tabby is now moving on all fours towards Kilowatt. Kilowatt, he's like, No, kitty cat, you stay away. And he's screaming. Mr. Electron hears Mr. Kilowatt screaming, and that's the last straw. He says, "You've made too much noise. Forget about the copper." So we all get into the truck and leave, and I'm looking in the side view mirror, and Miss Tabby is following us. It's like she's making sure we're actually going and saying, "Good riddance, boys."
Dun, la, 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 la.
So that's the first job that got into the news. Nobody could explain why you left. Now you know. What about the second job? We set it for President's Day weekend. Same thing. Got there Saturday at 1 a.m. We thought last time was just a weird one-off. But just in case, we brought shotguns with birdshot and mace to spray any cats. An hour later after we got there, I saw one hawk. Not a crow. Not crapping on us, but it seemed to be circling us, like when it's looking for prey. But that's what hawks do. It wasn't bothering us. We could have used our shotguns, but we didn't want to make any noise. So after a few minutes, we went back to work. I kept cutting and pulling cable. Everything was smooth. I thought finally we're going to cash out this time. I started detaching the modules from the first tracker string. And when you do that, you're under the panels, right? And while I'm working, I hear this thump on top of the panel. Like something with 4 paws had just landed on the top side. You can't see through the other side, but I knew it was an animal. I could hear it take a few steps and stop. And then, over the edge, I saw some whiskers hanging down off the frame, like she was kind of looking down. So Miss Tabby was back. Yeah, she was back. It was like that hawk told her. I didn't have my shotgun near me, but I did have mace in my pocket. I took it out and unlocked the cap. "You asked for it," I said, and I came out from under the panel spraying, but she was gone. And you're thinking maybe I imagined it, but I saw her little dusty paw prints on the top side of the panel. I went over and I told the others to watch out, that I'd seen the cat again. Mr. Electron took it seriously. He got out his mace and he decided to test it. But when he did, a sudden wind blew and some of the mist went into his face. It wasn't like a full blast, but it was painful enough. We all started pouring our water bottles onto Mr. Electron's eyes, and that distracted us for a good 5 minutes. Finally, he said his eyes stopped burning, and I turned around, and that's when I saw them. Another murder of solar crows? No. What, hawks? No. A herd of cats? No, Detective. Rabbits. Soft, fluffy, fast, angry jackrabbits. There were like 200, all coming out of the ground like rats spilling out of a pipe. It was dark, but they had white cottontails, and I could see hundreds of them jackrabbiting towards us at full speed at like 20 or 30 miles an hour. Me, Mr. Kilowatt, Mr. Electron, and Mr. Photon look at each other, and we know they're coming for us. "Get the shotguns," said Mr. Kilowatt. "Are you nuts?" I said. "We could get a few, but not all of them before they jump all over us." Photon and Electron were with me, so we had to give up again. We ran toward the truck, which is like 20 yards away. That's not too far, but Detective, you know humans can't outrun a jackrabbit, right? So just before we get to the van, they catch up to us. And they're swarming all over our legs and ankles, and I could feel their claw and buck teeth trying to gnaw into my boots and jeans. I still had my mace, and that probably saved us. I flipped the cap and sprayed. There was no backwind this time, so it was like parting the great rabbit sea. Every time they came toward the mist, Peter Cottontail and his gang jumped away, like it was an invisible force field. We finally made it into the truck, but before we could close the door, one of the rabbits jumped in and landed on the dashboard. He bared his little front teeth, and I think he was going for Mr. Electron behind the wheel. But that's when Kilowatt threw his windbreaker over it like a net. This angry rabbit was squealing under his coat, and you could see it kicking its leg with its sharp claws at him. But Kilowatt kept squeezing at the ends of the coat, tighter and tighter around Mr. Rabbit's body. "Open the fucking window!" he yelled. Photon did, and Kilowatt threw his bag of Bugs Bunny out. But now I see the window is wide open, and so do all the other rabbits. Close it, I said to Photon. Of course, he's fumbling between the door lock button and the window button, and I'm seeing 5 giant jackrabbits leap as the window crack is getting smaller and smaller, and then like golf ball hail hitting the windshield, the 4 rabbits thump, 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 hit the window glass at full speed. The glass doesn't break, but there's rabbit blood smeared on the sides. Mr. Watt says, "What are you waiting for, Electron?" Electron shakes out of it, and he punches the gas. But it's a soft, bumpy road, Detective, because these jackrabbits are trying to stop us. They keep flying in our way, but we've got enough horsepower, so eventually we speed ahead. I look in the side mirror, and I see there's Miss Tabby leading 200 rabbits chasing after us. You'd think we're in the clear, right? They can't outrun a van. But we closed the solar park gate, And we even put our own lock on it in case anybody came by to see what the new maintenance crew was doing. That meant that one of us had to go outside, pull out the key, put the key in the lock, and pull open the gate. Then that same person has to get back into the van. But these jackrabbits are coming at us at like 30 miles an hour. There was no time. So who was it going to be? Who was going to get out of the van? That person was going to become a human carrot stick. And we all knew it. Oh, geez. I'm sorry to leave you with a cliffhanger, but I'm told that people like shorter episodes. So we'll be back next week for part 2 and the conclusion of A Murder of Solar Crows. We'll find out if Mr. Watt or any of his fellow thieves become human carrot sticks. Clearly, they all survived until the third and final heist, when Miss Tabby shows up again with an even more bloody way to protect the solar project from thieves. Before we go, I do want to say that kleptovoltaics is very real. You can see some real news articles about those kinds of thefts in the True Solar Takeaways in the show notes. Thanks again for listening. Probably True Solar Stories is a production of Unthink Solar, PR, and Communications. Be bold for solar. Stand out and educate. See you next time.